Yep, I'll turn the mic on. Very professional. Hello. How are we doing today? This stream I'm going to be playing a game called Project Aura. Project Aura is a fascinating. What's the category is so strange. It's like a civilization slash planner slash. I always call them like a planner genre when I refer to them, but it's a game where you're basically balancing the needs of your colonists versus the needs of the mission, and we'll get into it here a little bit. But this is going to be kind of a fairly deep dive into where I think the game succeeds and where I think it fails, and I'm going to try and kind of go over some of the things that I think work really well and what are very unique in this genre, and what things are, I think, either a casualty of poor design or a casualty of the development process. But yeah, we'll spend about an hour or so going on this. I'm not going to spend too much time. I'm essentially going to let's get into the game. I'm going to start with a new game to demonstrate how it works, what it looks like, and then I'm going to load up my last save and kind of talk about what basically made me stop playing this. But I want it to be a positive note, because I feel like with some patches and with some balancing that it's something that I would want to come back to. So let's go here. We'll play some Project Aura. Hello, Mr. Select 5119. How are you today? Thank you for joining us, whoever you are. Alright, so let's start a new game. So, long story short, you are the manager of a colony. It's the far-flung future, and actually this song gets a little intense. Try to turn it on. You are the manager of a colony who has a bunch of frozen humans, and your goal is to wake them up and have them restart society. And yet there are these corporations, and as you see here, you pick one when the game starts, and they cover the basis in terms of one's into ecology, one's into industry, one's into science, and one's into pleasure or being conservative. I don't know. And then there's a neutral. So this kind of is supposed to dictate how your game will be played. In my main game, I did EcoCorp, but we're gonna, just to show it off, we'll do Cosmos. And you can kind of, some very basic level stuff to color what your colonists look like in terms of their uniform. Let's put ours into some Mets colors because they need it right now. And yeah, so you can make a name. What do we call this? New Amsterdam. See what I did there. And then, as with any sort of kind of similar game, you can kind of customize the difficulty of the map, how hard you want it to be, your victory conditions. So there's some overlap with SimCity, with the not really SimCity, but SimCity, Civilization, Sims, like in that range. I'm gonna lower the difficulty just so I can get going here. Mr. Select 5119 is playing the XCOM, the board game. How are you playing the board game and also watching Twitch, sir? How does one do that? Tell me your secrets. All right. And this came out, I want to say a week or two ago, out of early access, and it had been in early access for at least 2 years, 2 to 3 years. It was a game that I put the game audio back up a little bit because there's actually some really good music in here. That I bought really early in the early access process and really liked what it was doing. The potential that it had was really interesting to me. But I had been burned by a few instances of playing too much of an early access game and then not wanting to play any more of it when it actually came out. So in general, my policy is support it in early access to get it going, and kind of leave it alone until it comes out and it's ready. So this came out of early access, like I said, a couple weeks ago. They've been patching it fairly regularly since. So I'm gonna say no because I know where things are finally. There's a lot to unpack in this game, and that's why I don't want to spend too much time on it, because I kind of want to get into the basics of it, explain kind of the core loop, and then kind of go into a few things that I experienced with it, and a few kind of design thoughts that I had about it. So, right. So I'm not gonna. Yeah, there's a lot of. That's the first thing about this. This is not a particularly friendly interface. All right. So I'll just do some things, and you can kind of see how it's working. So you have colonists. You basically spawn these. You say, I want a colonist, and colonists have different jobs. There are 12 jobs that they can have. And the different jobs that have different helmets. This here is the only place you will see your colonist. Like a full representation of your colonist is in this little spinning pawn here. So you essentially defrost colonists from deep freeze in this central facility, and you put them to work to rebuild society, and start off humanity on the right foot, or whatever direction you want to take. So you're given these starter packs. And again, don't worry about anything that's confusing, because it's basically gives you starting resources. This is your inventory, which they've organized into categories that mostly make sense. So your colonists need a place to live. So here's kind of one of the one of the core parts of the game are placing a building. Now, in your normal RTS, your StarCraft or your SimCity or your any game where you're placing buildings, it's in your mind that you'll click on a thing and you'll get a kind of similar to this, where you'll see a place to put it. This kind of plays with this and has these templates where you can sort of create your own kind of like building, your prepackaged building. Each of them costs what it would cost to place those. But it starts to get very strange because each building has these extras. Like, there's these 3 different kinds of apartment buildings that I can place, and each of these cost different things. And they have these built-in templates, but what are they each do different things. And if I wanted, so it's already, I think, how much this game obfuscates information is one of its primary problems. But so I will drag out from here to place an apartment building. So now you may think, okay, you did it. This is a thing that you did. Let's say that I want to feed my colonists, so I'll place a seaweed farm. We're out here in the middle of the ocean. This is as kind of far out as I can zoom out. There's a protective dome from the elements. We don't really interact with the outside world at all. We mostly stay on this screen. You're mostly staring at this at this structure and at this hub for the entire game. Which is interesting in its own right, that it got me to do that for like 20 to 30 hours of just... You become so engrossed in the minutia of what you're doing that you don't realize that I've been staring at this. There's been no new stimulus other than information for that time. So there is something here, obviously, at least first for me or people who like to play games like this. So moving on, so we're in the middle of the ocean. We need to feed our colonists. Let's build a seaweed farm. So again, I'm gonna just zip through some things here. Oh, see, I already don't have enough materials for one. Okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, so, and this is just to demonstrate. So let's wake up a director, let's wake up a pilot, let's wake up a recycler. And each of these characters, each of these colonists, once they're in your colony, they have, there's a lot of depth here. Each of them have their own character sheet. They have hydration, nutrition, morale, and health that go up and down based off of how they're eating, how they're working. They have skills that can improve. These are little character sheets for each and every one of your colonists, and you can get up to 30, 40, 50 colonists at the end of the day. So colonists need to be fed. So you set up a menu. You feed them a healthy diet of seaweed and water. What you have to do to go to the larder and set up, and then you go to the menu, then you activate the menu. It's a little cumbersome. To be fair, the game does walk you through all this in a series of tutorials, and then the only campaign. They call it just a campaign, but they don't really explain what it is. But the campaign is basically the next tutorial, where it explains more. So, to their credit, there are very dense systems here, but 70% of them are explained very well. So you need to feed your colonists. This will dictate what they eat and during every cycle. Small things. And of course, you can grow new foods and find other avenues to feed your people. And ideally, the more variety you have, it actually has a variety bonus. So the different kinds of food will make them happier. If you're not eating seaweed and water all day, every day for months, you're going to be happier. And I can not relate, but I can understand. I've not been on a diet of seaweed and water, but I would assume it gets boring quite quickly. Anyway, so we have this building that holds our colonists, and we can build other buildings. Let's build something else just to show something that I'll have the materials for. Nope. Sure, desalination plant. This is a good idea. So we need a fresh supply of water to put on our menu. So here we've placed our desalination plant. Now you think, okay, this is just going to work and it'll do everything it needs to do. Absolutely not. You go crack into the next layer of this game, which is the blueprints. In order for any building to do anything, it has to have this blueprint, which is basically a series of nodes. It has to have a colonist who's a director to run it. It has to have a blueprint, which that building can run. So, for example, this desalination plant it's not doing anything. It has no blueprints. And we say, hey, what are your blueprints? Well, it desalinates water. Cool. How do I get that? Where do I go to get that blueprint started? You go here to your blueprint pack. So there are 4 different colors which match the 4 different corporations, and you I don't actually have to buy it. I mean, unpack it. I can buy it from the store, but I'll explain that in a second. So you drag the blueprint here into the desalination plant, and now you have this extra thing, this extra node that you have to do. And still, this doesn't work. This is not doing anything. You need people. So let's go find people. We have a director. Every single building needs to be run by a director. So you drag the director in. He now works as the director of the desalination plant. All he's going to do all day, every day, is desalinate water. It's a lot of fun. And then I need someone to actually run it. He's management. He's not going to actually get in there and run the gears and no. He's going to oversee the guy who does that. And for that, it says here, I'll need an operator. So let's defrost an operator. So this is one of the early loops that you can get caught in, where you're constantly saying, okay, well, I need an operator for my plants. I'm just gonna go defreeze an operator, which you can do. Defrost an operator. And you can. You say, hey, now if this looks clunky, it's because it is. There's like these 12 helmet shapes and colors are by no means intuitive. I did not memorize them as I went through the game because they are very similar. Like this between this and this. Like, how am I going to know operator versus pro? They don't make any sense as to their job. So it's a lot of clicking. Oh, where's the operator? The operator's here. Defrosting people costs money, space credits, or I forget what the actual term for the currency, but space bucks, essentially, right? Yes, I will recruit this person. It takes time. Let's unpause it a little bit. To get Angelia Petty out of the icebox and into the desalination plant. Just drag her right in there. Now she works there. Okay, now you think, okay, this thing will now do its job. Wrong. We have to now configure this blueprint. How many steps do we want it to do? Here's the things that it spits out. I'm gonna make it run forever and go. Now it's started. And so how it works is basically every person who's in charge of a particular blueprint, as time ticks on, certain cycles will go through. They will apply their skill set to this blueprint and accomplish the blueprint. This blueprint will produce water and salt. 100 units of water, 1 unit of salt. And this will just happen because it doesn't need anything. It doesn't take in anything. This just makes water and salt slowly. I could have dropped any sort of colonist in there as the operator. In fact, just to demonstrate what would that look like, let's do this. Let's take Angelia out. The job stops. Let's drop Otis. Reyes, who's that's a little too... John, there we go. A man after my own heart. We're gonna drop John, who's a pilot, to work on the desalination plant. He can desalinate water. It's red to show me that he's not very good at it, and it will go a lot slower. So why am I doing this? So every colonist can do everything. It's just you're trying to find the most efficient way to set up your whole shop. That's great, but it gets you into this. So earning money, I think, is one of the biggest issues in this game. They start you with a pretty hefty amount. I'm at 100. They start you with 100K. Defrosting everyone takes money. Buying blueprints takes money. Buying stuff off the market takes money. The only way for you to earn money is to just sell your extra stuff. Now, normally this wouldn't be a problem. You know, you would maybe set up an industry for, let's say, to find a parallel. Can't think of one, but a game that like has you make vendor items, or not vendor trash, but essentially an item that its intent is to be sold. Its intent is to generate income for your economy. All of the stuff that you make can generate income. I have 3,000 units of alpha polymers, and I can sell that for $1,600. Great. Problem is, you need everything you make. Everything you make. So buildings take metal, they take plastic, They take electronics. They take and colonists, of course. So all those things you need to make other buildings, to accomplish other goals, to chase other quests. So the problem I ran into, and now that you've got the barest whisper of, hey, look at the game, let's load up my save. And you can kind of see what the game state is 139 days in, or however many it was. Pop it with it. So here's Solace. Mr. Select 15119 will know where that's from. I'm sure the people might too, but he'll recognize it. So I have 35 colonists in this beautiful, sprawling colony. And I'm basically broke. And I've been chasing these quests that come up, like each corporation that you pick. In this playthrough, I went with the Ecology Corporation, and I built their building, where we're programming cores, don't worry about it. And they'll give you quests, and they want you to eventually get their victory, which is if you basically have to build a series of buildings and technologies that will earn you the victory of that corporation. And that's, it's a goal to work towards, because I don't know that this game would do well at all, or would work at all, if you didn't have a goal. If it's just spinning your wheels and making more plastic and to making more buildings, to make more fish, to make more seaweed, to feed your colonists, there's a point where you go, what am I, who cares? What's the point? So they very intelligently put quests in. This is a more recent thing in the early access development process, where they put these quests in, where that they give you things to strive for. If you improve the amount of variety on the menu, you get some money, you get some rep, and it's a time limited thing. You have only so long to do it. Whereas there's also these kind of story-ish missions that the corporation is giving you, where you, at first they're kind of interesting, and they're having you build text that you. This is the other thing. So these quests come up, and I've gone through about maybe 10 to 15 quests so far in this game, and almost all of them involve building things I hadn't built yet at all. Didn't even have the infrastructure for it. Didn't even have the technology for it. Had to spend time and money to set it all up to get the quest. Sometimes I didn't even get the quest because the quest timed out, because I spent too much time just trying to set it up and trying to get it going, while also learning the system. So I'm sure if and when I play again from the beginning, I might be able to accomplish those more and maybe stay on top of the money. But so here's another kind of core facet, is technology. So there are 4 flavors of technology and 4 flavors of research, again tied to the 4 different corporations. Okay. To do research, you need to unlock new technologies, to unlock new buildings, to unlock new things to do. Within these 4 companies, these 4 corporations, you have to spend what are called cores, which are essentially research MacGuffins that you have to generate. You make research cores in the tech lab, where I have a scientist and a programmer. My programmer is gone because of other reasons. Making these cores, they generate these cores. Okay, that seems fine. However, they just don't make them from nothing. They make them. So you see up in the top where it says innovation, and it has the 4 just has the names of colors, which is kind of obtuse. So, for example, green is at 2.1. That is how much innovation I have in green. You create innovation through production in buildings that match that color. That sounds confusing. It is. So green, for example, I have my botanic garden. It shows here that that will make it a green. But, and this is, I think, my biggest problem with this game is it all comes down to you can't make progress in a particular field or with a particular corporation until you reliably do the things that, till you reliably have the buildings that match that corporation do stuff. But so, like, and I can quickly go through and show you everything needs stuff to work. Like, here is how I make plastics. This is the plastic sorting factory. Plastic sorting takes in plastic that the drop ship goes out and finds and turns it into the 3 flavors of plastic. Those 3 different kinds of plastic have to be sorted, and then I can make alpha, beta, or gamma plastics, and those plastics are used for buildings. And then once they're melted down, okay, this is yellow. So yellow will also be, I'll always be making yellow. My yellow is pretty high, 15. If I ever wanted to, if I remember not making plastic, so to kind of bottle this up a little bit, almost everything is dependent on other parts of a tree of items where it feels artificially lengthened. It's, games like Civ, games like Sims, and I keep bringing this up because those are the only things I can think of off the top of my head. But there are other games like this, Frostpunk, for example, that just came out, which I'll be doing a talk about or a stream about in the near future. Excellent game. Does a lot of things does almost everything very well. But it's, again, where you're planning a society or you're planning a civilization. But in here, your progress is bottlenecked heavily, I feel, artificially. I can't make progress in green until I do more green things, but I can't do those green things because I need to feed other things into that green things, and those are other colors that need to feed in those, and those things. So it becomes kind of this this kind of noose around your neck that the more you play, the more you build, the more you do. You want to start making these cores so you can, and let me be clear, the story quest needs these cores. In order for me to advance in the story, this quest here, I need to make these cores. And there are actually 2 tiers of these cores. You make the higher tier and the corporation with the, for example, where's the green core tech? Yeah, so I need 10 green cores to make the next tier up. Also, there's a chance-based thing here which is maddening. So whenever you make research cores, and I apologize if this is getting in the weeds, but and I would encourage people to try this if any of this looks appealing to you, to try it out if and when this game goes on sale. I can't currently recommend it, but if and when this goes on sale, maybe try it out. See if anything here seems interesting to you, consider it, because there is something here. But it's also I feel like it's buried in the spaghetti of item dependency that is that just literally strangles the fun out of the game. So to make cores, you need to basically turn this innovation into cores. There's a percentage chance that you will be able to get an invention dock. 20% chance base. So 20%. And I don't know if that number is fudged in the background. I don't know if they have some sort of code that says if they haven't gotten a research doc in X number of tries, give them one. Maybe if they're nice. You need those to actually advance your tree here. Everything needs core invention docs. That's the only way that you can advance this. So your progress is further tethered by chance. So not only are you turning this and this, so for example, green research or green innovation that I need to advance the green quest. I can only get if I'm doing green things. Well, green things are harder to do. Recycling is green, makes sense. But I'm not always recycling things all the time because that's dependent on stuff being brought in. And if there's some sort of calamity outside, then maybe I won't be bringing stuff in. But I'm spending those green that green innovation on a chance to advance. Right. So in addition to get the next level, it takes 10 the green research cores to get to the next level. So I'll dial it back here and basically, this feels like it was over-designed in a way that's not done as much in video games anymore. You do see it in board games, I think more often than not, but there are three, and I haven't even talked about power levels. I haven't talked about the health of your colonists, when they get dehydrated, when they get upset, when they get sick, when there's a acid rain. You need to like generate medicine pools that you apply to them. I haven't talked about how you open up these hubs on the outside that give you more room to add stuff. They all need more power. Upgrading your colony takes white research. You need to, and obviously your apartments can only hold so many colonists. As you upgrade your colonists, the making new, thawing out new colonists costs more and more and more. Hoping that it, I guess everything scales upward. So it becomes increasingly, it strangles out what's interesting and just makes you chase your tail, basically. And I got to the point where I had done enough of the story quest and I'd done enough of the because I wanted to see how this all panned out. I wanted to see how this all worked together. Like you have to turn the plastic into plastic prefabs, and you have to refine iron, and building your own drop ships, and so this was, and also there's not a lot, but there's a decent amount of bugs in the quests. I spent almost all my money and a bunch of resources to restore seeds so I could then grow them in the biome. But then the quest didn't count it, and that was just didn't get any reward, no rep, no money. The developer did say it was a bug. Sure, these things happen, but it was just one of like 100 little things that kept niggling at me as I played this game. I just like there's something here and it's fun. Also, another kind of artificial lengthening I feel is certain things need reputation, or I should say influence, items. I don't think they're actually a thing in my inventory, but for example, anyway, there are these influence items that you get by spending reputation with the 5 corporations and the neutral one, which, sure. Your reputation does not go up over time with them, except for the one that you picked at the very beginning. Right? So I picked green at the beginning, I get 0.5 rep every day. I don't get rep with blue and purple and yellow. So I have a limited amount of their influence I can use for anything. Except quests come up over time that ask you to do things that require that rep. You basically burn out your relationship with them, and there's no point. There's drones. Drones, these don't really do anything. They cost a lot of money to set up, and they sort of help track the weather. Anyway, so yeah, I currently cannot recommend Project Aura. There's a lot going on, and if anyone ever wants to, I'm happy to do a brief playthrough the first, hour or two to kind of show how it builds up. But I feel so much time was put into making this feel like it takes a long time, and not enough time put into to make it a substantial experience. There's a lot of grammar and typos as well, which bothers me on a different level, but that's fine. There's a lot of things that are misnamed, from older names to newer names. It's just, it feels kind of clunky. It feels like it needs a lot more love. It doesn't feel like it was ready for 1.0. I don't know that they were under any sort of publisher influence to put it out, but yeah, it's kind of frustrating because there's yeah, exactly, Brass Gecko. It's there isn't, you don't feel rewarded for spending all this time, and your reward is, hey, you need to spend more of the things that you've been spending time on to get further. And I don't want to spend too much more time because I could literally spend the next 2 hours going through all these technologies, and like setting up the blueprints for some of this stuff is just like, this did not need to be this way. Like, there's no legitimate game design reason for me to have to actually drag a line to make a blueprint, to then drag a line to the person who runs the blueprint and then set up the blueprint. Like, in the Botanic Garden can have a ton of different blueprints that it can run. There's times where you are asked to make a product and you don't know how to make it. And to find out, they say, oh, use this, just drag stuff to this, and we'll tell you how to make it. Sure, but how do I get this blueprint? I don't know. You might not have access to that blueprint. Is that available on the market? Do I have to make a blueprint pack for it? Which color do I have? So it's just like 2 or 3 extra layers that just bog it down. It's almost drowned in detail, and it's frustrating because, like I say, there's something here. There is something very compelling to get this thing off the road, and I like, detailed crafting. I come from a background of playing games where detailed crafting and gathering items and crafting materials is appealing to me. I did a lot of production in EVE Online. I did a lot of stuff in Star Wars Galaxies. I like the idea of setting up a production facility or a production network to make stuff, but that all gets drowned in what almost feels like bureaucracy. And I don't think it's intentional that they're doing this. This is not a Papers, Please situation where the game was designed to make you feel the weight of bureaucracy above you as you try and accomplish these goals. Also, see Frostpunk, which I'll be doing some streaming on, where that does an excellent job of making you feel the weight of your goals, and you are communicated to that. We'll talk about that during Frostpunk, but here this doesn't feel like, in their game design, okay, let's make them feel like they're drowning in wires and production. It definitely feels top down, where it's like, we want you to be able to make this stuff. Here are 3 layers to make that thing. It takes a while to make stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, Project Aura. Wait for a sale. If anything seems interesting, maybe check it out. But yeah, it's too convoluted for its own damn good at this point. So anyway, that's been the stream. I think actually I will do some Frostpunk tomorrow. I think that'll be good. Can kind of go into why that's been appealing to me, why it works so well, why it's very very good at communicating things with visual information, and it has a ton of polish, which you don't actually see that much of today. So a shortish stream, but they all can't be 3-hour streams, which is probably for the best. But if you enjoyed this, if you watch this on demand, or you enjoyed this live, say hi, give me a follow. It's nice to know. Not talking to the void. See some friendly faces in chat, so that always helps. But yeah, that'll be it for now. Thanks for coming out.